Hey friends, welcome to Cait Casts On. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and I'm a knitter, spinner, sewist, and sometimes quilter based out of the Pacific Northwest. And today, actually, I have two very exciting titles to add to that long list of craftiness. The first is a weaver. It's a very exciting update I'm excited to share more about with you today. And the second is pattern designer. We'll get into it in today's episode, so grab your craft of choice, settle in, and let's get started. Hello. I hope you've had a really good couple of weeks. It's been a very exciting month since I recorded my last official podcast episode, and I have a ton to share with you today. So much so that I'm actually going to structure today's video a little bit differently. Like I said in the intro, I'm adding a new craft to my repertoire. So I decided today I want to go over every project kind of craft by craft. So we're going to start with knitting updates, move into spinning updates, sewing, and then last but not least, weaving. But before we get into all of that, I have one very, very exciting update to share with you, which is as of the day this video goes live, Friday, July 3rd, my very first knitting pattern, the Fable Socks, is officially live and ready for purchase inside Rambouillet. I'm so excited to bring this pattern into the world. It was a lot of fun to create, and just the test process was incredible and really great. And I'm so proud of the pattern that I'm putting out into the world. So I tried to make the pattern as size inclusive as possible. So it goes from a 48 stitch width all the way up to an 80 stitch width. So hopefully that fits most people. It has this really lovely lace pointelle motif that is just beautiful, but also really, really fun to knit. Adds a nice little bit of interest now and then while you're knitting. And that also has some ribbing details, so it creates a really nice, well-fitting sock that I just absolutely love wearing. The pattern is knit from the cuff down with a heel flap and gusset, so it's really easy to kind of tweak and modify the heel shaping. If you know that you have a higher instep or a shallower instep like I do, that's really, really easy to modify there. The pattern was test knit by knitters who self-identify as confident beginners all the way up to advanced, so I think it works really well for a wide range of skills. All of them were able to make their socks successfully. So that's really great. So if you're interested in knitting the Fable Socks for yourself, you can find the link to that pattern in the description below. Okay, now moving on to regularly scheduled content. Before we dive into knitting, I'll go over what I'm wearing today. I have on this lovely kind of wrap here. It's a big drapey, long, oversized cardigan. This is the Kama Cocoon, which is a pattern by Anne Vensel. This pattern does only come in one size. It's meant to be just quite oversized and flowy, but obviously depending on your body type, it's going to fit you differently because it's just one size fits all. I strayed quite a ways away from the recommended yarn. The pattern recommends this very woolly Aran weight yarn, and I opted instead for Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino held double, which produces a very, very different fabric for sure. My gauge was also a little bit off as well. It's a little bit smaller. Knitting for Olive held double does not equal Aran weight. It's more of like a DK worsted. So it's a little bit of a denser gauge as well, but I really like it, and it's a great kind of flowy thing for spring and summer, and just really nice to layer over tanks. I have learned a lot since I knit this pattern. This was my very first lace project, and I didn't really know about how you are supposed to wrap the yarn the opposite way when you're doing yarn overs before a purl stitch. So my yarn overs are definitely not even. Like one side of the little motif here is definitely smaller. The yarn overs are smaller than the other side. And that's consistent throughout the entire sweater because I didn't really know that that was a thing. But obviously I still wear it and love it, and it's a really great little sweater for me. Okay, so now let's go ahead and get into knitting updates. I'm going to cover finished objects, works in progress, all that jazz, all for knitting first. The very first thing that I have to share with you is a finished object. I did go ahead and finish my Marseille sweater very recently. This is a pattern by Petite Knit. The yarn that I used for the main color of this sweater is Pearl Soho Knitting Yarn DK in the color Ivory Gray. And then my stripes are actually knit using some hand spun that I created. So there's some really cool color effects that are kind of visible in the sun. No stripe is exactly the same. It is a pretty subtle color variation in the hand spun, but I think it's really lovely all the same. I'm very happy with how this sweater came out. There was some interesting, I feel like, decisions made throughout the pattern that I ended up tweaking or just kind of wondering why they were chosen, which isn't necessarily something that I typically find in petite knit patterns, but in this one I did. The first one is that this pattern recommends a provisional cast on at the shoulder here. And I opted for a long tail cast on, and I think it looks exactly the same. I think I picked up stitches instead of doing a provisional cast on, and truly, like, this looks exactly like the pattern pictures. And so I'm not totally sure why she would have recommended a provisional cast on. In my experience, a long tail cast on has a little bit more stability and is also just easier. So that's why I made that decision to change, because it didn't really make sense to me that there would be a provisional cast on when the appearance is the same as a long tail. So I went ahead and made that modification. And then also the hem and the cuff ribbing, she recommends staying at the same needle size that you knit the body of the sweater and the sleeves of the sweater at. And I did not want to do that. So I did size down 2 needle sizes. I think if I recall correctly, the sweater was knit on US 6. So I went down to a US 4 or 3.5 mil for the ribbing like I normally would. And I think it created a really nice clean finish. Meanwhile, the collar of the sweater is actually knit on even smaller needles than that. I want to say, was it like a US 2 or 3? Like you went down quite a bit for the collar, which did result in a really, really neat collar that I'm very proud of. But it was quite interesting that on the collar, she asked you to go down so far in needle size, but then for the other cuff and hem, she recommended not going down at all, just staying on the same needle size. So I thought that was pretty interesting, but I did go down, like I said. I made that modification there. I have not checked my finished gauge, so this might just be a gauge thing. The sweater fits in a way that I really like, but I did shorten the body length by 1 stripe. In my size, I was supposed to have 5 stripes in the body. And I did 4, and then in the sleeves, I was also supposed to have 4 stripes, and I did 3. So I did have to shorten everything up quite a bit. When I gauge swatched, I was right on target, but obviously gauge can change between swatch and project. And I haven't really worried about checking gauge with this post blocking. I suppose I could. If anyone is curious what my gauge is and like actually wants to know that information, I can do that for you. Just leave a comment below. But I haven't gone to the trouble of measuring it since, because it fits in a way that I really like. One other odd thing that I did end up modifying a little bit was where the sleeve decreases take place. Without getting like too specific and giving away pattern details, the pattern sleeve decreases, how they're written in the pattern, conflicted with how I know how to do jogless stripes. Like I couldn't do a decrease and a jogless stripe if they happen to coincide on the same row, the way that it was described in pattern. So I did end up moving my decreases out a little bit so that I could do the jogless stripe. They still happen on the same row, but it's not quite as close to the beginning of round as it's listed in pattern. But that's kind of one other thing that I don't know, I just thought was interesting. Jogless stripes aren't listed as a technique in the pattern, but it's just something that I know how to do, and I'm always going to do it. But it was interesting that I felt like a petite knit pattern typically would consider those details, and this one did not have them. So I just thought that was interesting. It's not necessarily a deal breaker at all. At the end of the day, I am very happy with my finished product, but maybe a beginner knitter or a more intermediate knitter might not have made the same decisions that I made, or question the decisions that were made in the pattern, and it might result in a sweater that just doesn't look, I don't know, maybe quite so polished or isn't as structurally sound between the cast on, the cuff ribbing, and then the decreases and jogless stripe situation. So just something to keep in mind. But overall, I'm really pleased with this sweater. I love the color combo. It was definitely like designed around my hand spun yarn that I made last year. And I really think it's just a classic, really nice looking sweater that I'm excited to pull out as the weather gets cool. It's actually been pretty cold here in Oregon the last week. We had kind of a cold front move through, and it's been in the 60s. So I have had a chance to wear this actually twice, which has been really nice. I wasn't expecting to be able to do that until September or October, but it is a very cozy, just nice fitting classic sweater that's really easy to style. So yeah, that is my Marseille sweater by Petite Knit. My next knitted finished object is a little set of golf club covers that I knit for one of my brothers. I do have to knit another set for my other brother here coming up, but this is the first one that's completed. This is a free pattern from Purl Soho. It's just called Knitting Golf Club Covers, I believe, but I will leave it linked if you're curious. But it's actually a very simple little pattern to whip up. This is the third set that I have made. And this version is knit using Lang Yarns Merino Plus Color, which is a 100% superwash DK weight or worsted weight yarn. I can't totally remember. I think it's DK. But it has this really fun little color fade situation happening that makes for really nice, vibrant golf club covers. The actual pattern has kind of like stripes and different designs happening in the head of the golf club cover. I think that's what you would call it. But my brothers wanted some kind of color fading yarn. That's what they decided on, obviously, with the yarn they chose. And one thing that I totally forgot about from the last time I knit this was that the yarn is held single throughout the stem of this. And then you actually hold it double throughout the head part of the golf club cover. And you get a thicker yarn so that it cushions the golf club a little bit better. And with this being like a color changing yarn, that was pretty tricky. I had to think about how I wanted to do that and do it successfully so that I didn't break up the color fading. And I had ordered 3 skeins of this yarn just to have enough yardage for all 3 of these. And so it worked out that I was able to like knit the base of this here, get to the point where I needed to double up my yarn. And I was able to grab another ball of yarn, kind of find the same point in the color fade and then grab that, hold it double for the remainder. And thankfully I was able to do that for all 3 and like have a separate ball of yarn that had the right part of the color fade for me so that it wasn't too complicated to grab and to match. I was a little bit concerned when I got to the last one, which is the driver, that I wasn't going to have quite the right color section left over because I'd already dipped into all 3 skeins of yarn at that point. But thankfully it did work out. So that's nice. It results in just like a really nice squishy feeling cover for the golf club that I think will protect them really well. And yeah, these are all done now. I have, like I said, one other set to do. Actually, my other brother has a cover for his driver already, so I only need to knit these 2 for the second brother, but those will be getting done here soon, hopefully, and shipped out to them so that they can enjoy them as they golf this summer. Okay, that's it for knitting finished objects. I have a few works in progress to share. And the first one here is going to take me a second to get it situated, but this is my flock vest. This is a pattern by Andrea Mowry or Drea Renee Knits, and it's part of a knit along for Flock Fiber Festival. It is a worsted weight, 3-color little striped vest that's really, really fun. It has a V-neck shaping and a cardigan front. And yeah, it's coming along. I'm making good progress. I'm joined under the arm right now. And I actually did my armhole ribbing already as well, just to make sure I liked the fit of things. And yeah, it's coming along really well. I am using some yarn from Stash, some scraps that I had left over, and then I supplemented by ordering a few extra skeins of a few of the colors just to make sure I had enough yarn. But I got started with scraps. So the first color, the main color that I'm using is Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Pomegranate. You can see I am holding the yarn double for this project, and I'm pulling from the inside and the outside of the ball at the same time. Because this is a 3-color project already, I really didn't want to have 6 balls of yarn attached to my project. So I'm pulling from the inside and outside, and that's helping a little bit with yarn management. And then my secondary color, the color B, is Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Dusty Dove Blue, also holding that double. And then the third color is Knitting for Olive Merino in the color Oatmeal, holding that double as well. This one, I think I'm going to be able to use 100% from Stash, and I won't need to do anything else. I had enough with that one ball to do the third color. So I'm going to get up close so you can kind of see how the colors come together. There's like blue bordering the oatmeal color in the center of the stripes, and then obviously red around. when I do my button band, I'm also going to do that in the red pomegranate color as well, just like the armhole ribbing there. But yeah, I am making good progress on this. I do want to finish it soon, ideally in time for like the knit along deadline, which I believe is July 18th. But definitely in time to wear to Flock Fiber Festival on July 31st, August 1st. I do feel like I'm working at a pretty good pace. In the beginning of this project, I had heard people talk about, you know, yarn management being kind of crazy because you actually do carry all your yarns at the same time. You don't like cut any ends. You just carry everything down. And in the beginning, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I felt like the yarn management was pretty simple if you kind of kept a system. And like the stripes aren't large enough that the yarn ends could get too tangled before I had to untangle them. And then the farther I got into the project, when I was doing the front panels and also had the back panel floating around, you know, and now that I've joined under the arms, there has been moments where the yarn management has felt a little bit frustrating. And so at that point, I just put it down for a few days, and then picking it up again, I felt a little bit better about it again. So just trying to give myself a little bit of time and space to figure that out. But one thing that I have found really helpful is that instead of using a project bag, I'm actually holding all of my ends in a basket instead. And then I just like plop this on the basket, move this around, and then like carry my basket around with me until I'm ready to knit on it again. And that way things don't get too zhuzhed around. It still does happen a little bit, but it's definitely less than it would be if it was in a project bag. And especially because I'm holding my yarn double, like the yarn ends could go in between the loops. It could be a mess. And so using a basket has helped. And I have that basket sitting next to me all the time anyway. It has my interchangeable set in it. It has a pencil in it, a pen in it, you know, just miscellaneous stuff, normally a hair clip. And so, yeah, it's not that hard to just kind of pop this in there and carry that wherever I need to go if I'm moving around the house with it. So that has been very helpful in the process of keeping things untangled and yarn management good. At this point in time, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and change stripes under the arm. So that's probably like 5.5, 6 inches. And I think in this pattern, my size is supposed to knit to 9 inches under the arm. So I'm not that far off from doing bottom ribbing here. I'm going to try it on probably in the next stripe or two just to make sure I'm liking the length and do want to do that. And I will do a mid-project block on this as well, because I know that knitting for olive merino relaxes at this gauge. So I don't know how much it's going to relax, but we're going to block it to be sure. And then it'll just be kind of the button band ribbing and buttonholes, and we'll be good to go. So I'm really happy with how this is coming along. The stripes definitely make it feel like very motivating to work on in general. Like I can really see the progress I'm making when I work on this. It's really just kind of the yarn management that sometimes takes the right headset to work on it and feel good about. But if you can find a system that works for you there, this is a really, really fun project and very motivating to work on. I know a ton of people are knitting this pattern right now. So if that's you, if you're one of them, leave a comment below and let me know what colors you're working with. I'm really excited to see all the versions that people knit in a few weeks at Flock. My next knitting work in progress is the Skyline Tee by Tori Yu. This is a saddle shoulder tee pattern. Worked with this really lovely looking rib along the saddle shoulders. I don't know how easy that is to see, but it's a really nice, delicate detail, and I'm very excited about this. I've also made some really good progress in this. I'm probably, let's see, like 7 or 8 inches under the arm. It's probably time to try it on and just like confirm the length I want, maybe do a mid-project block for this one as well. This one I'm kind of knitting a little bit differently because I have 4 skeins of yarn in one dye lot and then the 5th skein of yarn in a different dye lot. And the difference between the 2 dye lots is like pretty significant. So at this point in time, I have quite a bit of progress made and I feel pretty good about the yarn that I have left. I don't think I'm going to need to dip into that 5th ball of yarn. I hope. I don't want to jinx myself, knock on wood for me. But I think I'll be okay. But normally I would have knit the collar by now. That's something I like to do a little bit earlier in the project. But the reason I haven't done that yet is because if I do need to dip into that 5th ball of yarn, I'm going to save it so that it's just all the ribbing details along the neck, the sleeves, and the hem. so that hopefully that difference looks intentional / maybe not even noticeable. So that's kind of my thought process there. So yeah, like I normally would have done the collar by now, but I'm waiting for that reason. And I'm kind of debating how I want to do this because the collar is going to affect the fit of the body and the sleeves in general. So it's a little bit out of order for what I normally like to do, but I think I'll just keep knitting a little bit, try it on, make some guesstimates about body length, but probably not bind anything off. And then do sleeves maybe and see how much yarn I have left after sleeves, and then go back and finish all the ribbing. Once I'm confident I can either finish with the same dye lot or not, and then I'll change dye lots for the ribbing. I think that's a good plan of action, but it's knitting up really, really quickly. Oh, I didn't mention, I am knitting this using Sandnes Garn Tin Lena in the color Deep Burgundy. And it's making a really, really nice drapey fabric. It does look a little bit see-through on camera actually, but like when it's held up to my skin, it doesn't look that way at all. So I think it will be fine. I can always wear a little undershirt underneath it if I need to. I did need to size up to a US 4 needle or 3.5 mil. The pattern calls for a US 3. And this yarn is just a very light fingering weight yarn, and the pattern calls for just like a true fingering weight yarn. So I do think this is a little bit more open than is recommended, but it is creating a really nice drapey, lovely fabric that I think is going to be really comfortable to wear in the heat. So I think it will work out good. And because it's a dark color, I don't think the openness is going to be a problem. But like I said, I can always wear a little tank top cami underneath it if I need to. But yeah, it's coming along really well. At this point, it's just pretty straightforward stockinette knitting for a while. The sleeves continue this ribbing along like the length of the sleeve. So that will be a nice little fun thing to knit when I pick up stitches for the sleeves. And then obviously the collar and the hem will be ribbing as well. But otherwise, it's just a pretty straightforward, easy project. I actually already ordered yarn to knit another one of these, assuming that it fits well, which I think it will. I got some yarn in Coast to Coast Yarn Co.'s pre-order for Joy Tones. I got some cotton merino that I'm really excited about that'll get here in a few weeks. But yeah, I'm really, really pleased with this pattern. It's my first Tori U pattern. It's been a joy to work on and a joy to knit, and the instructions are really lovely. So highly recommend this pattern if you haven't done it already. Okay, this next knitting work in progress, I'm gonna go over really quickly because I feel like I've talked about it so many times already, and I'm going to continue talking about it probably for at least another couple months. But this is my leaf collecting shawl. This is a self-drafted pattern that I'm creating. I kind of designed it around this lovely skein of hand spun that I created last year. It's a 2-ply lace weight, merino and tussa silk blend. Has this really lovely drape, and I just wanted to create something really special for it. So this is what I'm working on right now. It's an end-to-end shawl with leaf shaping and some seed stitch details. And let's see, where my stitch marker is where I was last time. So I've made that much progress, probably like 4 inches of progress. And then I will try and stick my hand behind so you can see kind of how the color changes are happening now that this is getting wider. It's really fun to see it come together and do different things. This is kind of a back burner long-term project for me. I do a couple rows a week basically. So you'll see this again on the podcast, and I don't want to talk your ear off about it, but I did make some progress. So that's the update there. My last knitting work in progress is a pair of socks. I cast on the Oxbow Socks, which is a pattern by Drea Renee Knits or Andrea Mowry. It features this really lovely knit purl texture that kind of has a really good stretch and give to it that just makes for a really lovely fitting and feeling pair of socks. This is my fourth pair, I think, of Oxbow socks that I've made. So I love this pattern. I've knit it several times. It's just great. I'm knitting this version using Coast to Coast Yarn Co. Classic Sock in the color Crater Lake. I'm obsessed with this color. It's so just like deep and vibrant and like jewel toned. It's just absolutely lovely. I think it looks really good with this stitch texture as well. Of all the versions of Oxbow socks that I have knit previously, none of them have been like solid or tonal. They've all had some variegation in it or like color shifting happening. So it is really lovely to see how the stitch pattern looks and just like a nice crisp color. just think it's beautiful. So at this point, I need to start the heel flaps soon. I just haven't decided when I want to do that. I need to like hold this up against some other pairs of socks and make a decision about how long I want the ankle to be. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I haven't worked on it for a few days because I do need to take a second to like hold this up to some other socks and make a decision about ankle length. But then it'll be the heel flap, the gusset, the foot. It'll be a nice, easy, portable project that's really easy to kind of pick up and take with me different places. Okay, that is it for knitting updates. So let's go ahead and get into all things spinning. The first few things that I have to share are some finished skeins that I have spun. This first one is Skagit Woolen Works Romney Lamb. You might be familiar with this if you've caught previous podcast episodes. I had 2 braids of this in stash. I spun the first one a few months ago. It was my very first woolen spun. Took a break, did a different braid of fiber, and then came back to this one to finish off what I had. I tried to replicate like the exact same situation for the most part. And yeah, it's just a nice little woolen spun Romney yarn. It's really, really nice. It is just like a simple 2-ply. I have not taken measurements for it yet, so I cannot confirm how close I got to like the original skein that I spun. But I think just like eyeballing it, I do feel like it's pretty close and like close enough that I can use them together in the same project. But yeah, I do still need to like take stats on this, calculate yardage and wrap sprint and all that jazz. But it feels very, very similar to what I had previously. So that's really nice. I did spin this mostly using long draw. The previous one, I was just kind of letting twist in between my hands and not necessarily pulling back. I was just kind of inchworming and letting twist in, versus this one I was able to pull back a little bit more and handle that. So that was a really good practice for some long draw. And then after I finished this skein, I really wanted to try out long draw on a different kind of fiber because that was Romney. And so I looked at the braids that I had in stash, and I had this really, really fun, colorful braid from ZeeZee Textiles. This is the colorway 5 Flies. I got this at Naughty Lamb during the Rose City Yarn Crawl. And this is 100% Rambouillet. So a very different fiber to Romney. This one is much softer and like shorter staple length and more of a fine wool. So just, it was really interesting doing the same draft on different kinds of fiber. That was one of my goals for this summer, was I just want to get a handle on what different things feel like doing woolen spun and kind of just gain an understanding of how things feel and work, and both in the process and in the finished product. So this was really informative. I also feel like I really improved how I was doing long draw. When I was plying this guy, there was a lot of moments where it broke and I had to kind of rejoin plies. Like I didn't let quite enough twist into it in the original single spin. This one, I feel like it happened maybe like 1/10 of what it did in that one. So it did happen a couple times, but this one happened way more frequently, and I'm very pleased. Like generally, I feel like I'm getting a better handle on twist in woolen spun yarns. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how this skein came out. This is just like the fluffiest, lightweight, like squishiest skein ever. It's so, so nice. I'm really looking forward to working with this. And it's just, the colorway is so fun. It reminds me a lot of like a summer sunset or like a day at the pool or something like that. It's really, really fun and vibrant and lovely. To compare, I thought I would pull out another skein of Rambouillet that I spun. This is a 3-ply worsted spun, and this is woolen spun and 2-ply. But just for size comparison, these are like the same 4 ounces, very similar braids, you know, from processed similarly and like dyed by hand dyers. This is Little Fiber Co. and this is ZeeZee Textiles. But just like, this is squishy, like this is nice, but this is like squishy and like fluffy, and just like the size difference is really, really interesting. So obviously you can't feel through the camera and on YouTube, but hopefully that helps give kind of a comparison on the difference and what I'm learning and experimenting with this woolen spun journey. I also have not taken stats for this yet, so I don't know yardage or wraps per inch. My guess looking at it is it's probably a sport to DK weight in most areas, but I do think that I'll have quite a bit of yardage out of it because it's woolen spun. So yeah, if you're interested in those details, I do add them to Ravelry in my hand spinning projects. But admittedly, it does take me a little bit to update. I don't think I even added this fiber as a project, so I need to do that and get those details added. But if you're curious, I do eventually add them. And if you would like me to do it sooner, you can definitely leave a comment below and I will prioritize that. So that's it for spinning projects that I have right now. But I did want to take a second to talk through Tour de Fleece plans because that is coming up. In my summer making plans video, I really just talked about my spinning goals being experimenting with woolen spun yarns, using different preparations, different fiber types. I just wanted to get a handle and get more information on what woolen spun looks like and feels like in different formats and different fibers. So with that in mind, Tour de Fleece, I really want to focus on woolen spun. I am going to be part of the Stash Dashers team, which is hosted by Nelly Knits. So that will be really fun. Really the only parameter there is spinning braids from Stash. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm not putting a ton of pressure on myself to get much done. For me, I don't really care so much about quantity. I just really want to enjoy the process, learn, and get some things out of Stash. That sounds really great too. So very low key over here, but I thought I would quickly go over some braids that I'm interested in working with. The first is this bat from Bellwether Wool Company. I got this in March down in Klamath Falls. This is a natural two-tone is the color name. And it's 4 ounces of merino, 80% and 20% Angora bunny. And it's just a really nice little fluffy looking thing. I'm really excited to try spinning Angora. It feels very soft and fluffy, and I felt like this fiber spun into yarn, like they had samples of it, and it feels so nice when they just did kind of a fingering weight 2-ply. So I thought that would be very interesting to spin, and I think it would be good woolen spun, I'm pretty sure. I'll reference my book back there, and if you have any experience spinning this, definitely let me know your thoughts. I know it's a shorter staple length. I think it'll be okay. We'll find out. I'm going to try anyway. I'll even if I start doing woolen spun and decide the yarn isn't quite right, I spin up a sample and I'm not super in love with it, I'm definitely going to try because I want to get that handle on woolen spun and what that looks like with different fiber blends. So this is one that I have in mind. And then I also really want to spin this braid that I got from Bramble Ridge. I actually got this in a D-stash. This is the 2025 La Mercerie Eurofiber colorway from obviously last year in 2025, but this is December's colorway, and it's called Kuri, and it's on 100% Cormo, and I've been really looking forward to spinning this, but wanted to get a little bit better at woolen spun before I tried to handle it. Again, I need to reference my book back there, but I think I want to try and do this woolen spun as well. And then I have these 2 braids from Long Dog Yarn that I also got in March. These I got at the Webster's down in Ashland. This one is called Oh You Wonderful Mistake of Nature. Really nice blue, orange, cream. And then this one is the color Adelaide. It's just kind of orange. Has kind of the burgundy little spots here and there and some creams as well. I thought these would be really beautiful plied together. They're both 100% American Rambouillet, so the same fiber as this guy, so I think it's going to make a really lovely yarn woolen spun. So that's kind of an option on my mind. And then last but not least, I have these 2 braids from Hearts on Fiber. This is a yarn store in Davidson, North Carolina, near Charlotte. And these I don't think I would do woolen spun, so this is kind of an alternate option depending on how much I get through, or if I'm not enjoying one of the other braids, then I can hop to this. But this is 80% superwash merino, 20% recycled jeans. So very, very cool, interesting blend. And I'm really excited to see what this looks like in a spun yarn. So yeah, those are kind of some of the braids on my mind for Stash Dashers, getting through some things, trying out some new techniques before Flock Fiber Festival, and just, yeah, having some fun with spinning. Like I said, I have no pressure or goals whatsoever in terms of how many braids I get through. This is just me pulling the ones that I'm interested in working with, And honestly, I might work with them in a different order than I mentioned. I'm just going to go on vibes. I'm going to go on what I feel like doing at the time, and it's going to be great. And we're going to have a lot of fun, and we're going to learn some new things too. So feeling really, really good about that. Okay, so the next thing that I have to talk to you about is some sewing. Just this one project today, but I thought I would share that I finished it because I did share it while I was in progress. This is the Sour Cherry shirt by Double Ugly Studios. It is a really lovely short sleeve, oversized button down, kind of cropped as well, with a raglan construction. So this is my first time doing a button down, or actually any sewing top, now that I'm thinking about it, with a raglan construction. So that was really fun. I really enjoyed the process of it. I felt like it came together very, very quickly. I used, let's see, Matchy Matchy Sewing Club's block print. I forget the actual name of the fabric. I'll leave a picture of it so you can see. I think this specific color is sold out. I haven't checked on the other colors in a while. But it's just a really nice, lightweight 2.4 ounce cotton with this beautiful little block print design that's floral. And it created a really, really nice fabric for this project. It's so lightweight, it's so breezy, and just like how this shirt fits, it feels like I'm not wearing anything. Like it's just, I'm comfortable. I've worn this a handful of times already, and I'm really, really happy with it. I did make a couple modifications to the pattern. Just for my preferences, I shortened the sleeves by 1 inch, and I lengthened the body by 2.5 inches. So naturally, as kind of written, the sleeves are a little bit longer and the body is a little bit shorter. The body is typically very, very cropped, and I just wanted something that kind of hit high hip for me, and it was just a little bit less cropped. So that's what I did. It's a little bit obviously different proportions, but I think it turned out really nice. And I'm really happy with the finished product. Like I said, I've worn it a lot. And yeah, just a nice little sewing update there. I don't have any other projects in process or anything like that. I think the next thing I want to sew is the Falconer Pants by Helen's Closet. I talked all about that in my summer making plans. So that is definitely on the horizon. But for now, for the next few weeks, I am going to be putting sewing down for a little bit and focusing on spinning for Tour de Fleece and knitting before flock. And then also a very new, very exciting craft that I'm adding to my repertoire right now, which is weaving. So let's go ahead and get into it. So a few weeks ago, I was perusing Facebook Marketplace, as one does when they're looking for trouble. And I stumbled across a really beautiful used Ashford 24-inch rigid heddle loom and stand about an hour away from me. And I saw the price, and I went, that's really cool. And also, no, like we're not going there right now. And then, you know, a week later, I'm perusing Facebook Marketplace again, and oh, it's still there. Long story short, it stayed up for a few weeks. And one day I went to see if it was still there because I couldn't stop thinking about it, and it was gone. And I was devastated. I was actually very upset. It was a little embarrassing. And then my husband was like looking at the seller profile for who had listed it originally and saw that, oh, it was just relisted. She didn't sell it. It was just relisted. And so it was back. And I kind of took that as a sign of like, okay, maybe I actually need to look into this because I was genuinely pretty upset when it was gone. So I did some like YouTube research. I was just like looking into, okay, what can this do? I actually like read the description a little bit more thoroughly for the listing, and saw everything that she was including, kind of with the loom. And I pretty much made up my mind to go ahead and buy it. So I'm really, really happy with it. It came with a lot of goodies, which is basically like the selling point for me. I got the 24-inch rigid heddle loom, which is like obviously the thing you need to weave. It came with the stand, and actually the older version of the Ashford stand, which from my understanding is a stand that a lot of people wish they had. Like they don't make that version anymore, and people wish they did. So it was that version of the stand. It came with an attachment to be able to hold 2 heddles instead of just 1. So that's like an add-on that she purchased, you know, to be able to do some different things. It allows you to do more complicated patterning. It allows you to weave double width fabric. So even though it's a 24-inch loom, I can weave up to 48-inch fabric. It came with pickup sticks, shuttles, and then also 4 heddles. I wasn't sure what size dent they were. I didn't ask that. I just kind of looked at the price of what a heddle costs and thought, Oh, that's actually a really good deal. With all of that thrown together, it was like less than 50% of retail price. And yeah, I just felt like if I was going to get started weaving, that would be a really great kind of setup to get started with. I really wouldn't need to buy anything to get started with. And so yeah, after doing like the research and like reviewing everything, I realized that chunk of things that she was selling, that listing would basically set me up to start weaving immediately. There would be nothing that I needed to buy. And also looking at my yarn stash, there's been a lot of things in like my deep stash, like tucked away in a tote. A lot of it is leftovers from past projects or like single skeins that I haven't known what to do with. And I've thought about destashing and just never got around to it. But I went through like my deep stash that's not on my yarn shelf and I pulled out, okay, what would I use for weaving if I got this loom? And what would I like save for knitting or just repairs or anything like that, like if a sweater gets damaged or whatever. And the amount that I pulled out that like, no, I would weave with this. It was like a lot. It was enough that it felt like a weight lifted off my chest. Like I don't like keeping a ton of things in stash. It just feels heavy for me personally. So the idea of getting like that amount of yarn out of stash, or at least just like feeling like I had a practical use for it, like there is something I would make with that, was very, very inspiring and energizing to me. So I went ahead and we purchased the loom and brought it home a few days ago. And it's been a lot of fun to get started with. A big learning curve for sure. I actually have like a very minor history experience with weaving. I had a little lap tapestry loom thing that I had in 2020 during the pandemic, during lockdown. It was one of the hobbies that I picked up. Actually, I think it was before I really started knitting again, because I think it was later 2020 that I picked up knitting needles again. So I had some experience, like I knew the basic terminology, I knew the basic stuff, but I felt really limited by that little lap loom and ended up getting rid of it several years ago. I wasn't making things that I really wanted to work with. And also the process of like passing the weft through kind of tore up my fingers on that. So I've always kind of had it in the back of my mind that I wanted to start weaving and learn more about it. And this was just like a really great excuse to do that. So yeah, I brought that loom home, immediately got started working on some stuff. And it's been a lot of fun kind of figuring it out and learning the basics of it again. And yeah, just having a lot of fun. So the very first thing that I wove was just this little sampler. I was just testing out some stash yarn that I had and just wanted to create something really simple, get the basics of kind of the selvage edges and carrying yarn potentially, and just a little pattern here. So this is some, I want to say Valley Yarns Huntington, I think. It's a fingering weight superwash merino, and it might have some nylon in it. This is deep stash. This was like when I very first started knitting again in like 2020. I've had this in there for a while. I have several skeins of both of these colors that I haven't known what to do with. And yeah, so weaving with it was really nice. I have more that I can go through for sure and make something potentially a little bit different. But just wanted to get a handle on this. So this was like the very first thing I did the very first night. I haven't steamed it or blocked it or anything like that, so it still feels a little bit crisp. I did this on a 15 dent reed, which if you're not familiar with weaving, I'm learning too, so forgive me if you're very experienced and I sound like a fool here. Actually, hang on a second. So just for example, if you're unfamiliar with weaving like I was, I have two different heddles here, two different reeds, and different sizes. So this first one here is a 7.5 dent reed, which means you feed yarn through both the slots and the holes here. So when you warp your loom and have all your threads fed through everything, there will be 7.5 threads per inch of fabric. This one is a 15 dent reed, and so all the slots and holes are much smaller, and there's 15 strands of yarn that come through per inch of reed here. So that's kind of the difference. And depending on the yarn thickness you're using or like the kind of amount of drape that you want in your project, you would pick one size over the other. So for this very first little sampler that I made here, I used the 15 dent reed with a fingering weight yarn, a light fingering weight yarn. And I'm not sure, like this does feel like pretty dense. It's not see-through at all. I haven't like steamed or blocked this yet. So I think in reality, a 12 dent reed would probably be better for most practical uses of this yarn. I do not have a 12 dent reed. I have two 7.5s, a 10, and a 15. So the 12 dent is like the one I'm missing right now that I feel like I would use pretty frequently. But I think if I were to do this again to like make a scarf or just something that I wanted to have a little bit more drape, I would probably do a 12 dent reed to get a little bit less of a dense fabric. But that being said, I do feel like this density might make like nice curtains or something like that. So that was just like a fun little experiment. Again, just kind of getting used to the motions of weaving, making sure I understood how it worked, just very small, low pressure project. And then next I decided that I was ready for like an actual project. I wanted to really commit to something, and it didn't need to be complicated, but I wanted to like really do a full project from start to finish. So I made this really fun scarf. And this scarf is very, very special to me because it's actually using the very first yarn that I ever spun myself. This is actually the yarn here. I have quite a bit of it left over. When I was learning how to spin, I just bought like, I don't know, like a pound, I think, of this natural stripe BFL fiber from the Woolery. Someone I watched online recommended getting something with kind of some color variations in it so that you could see your twist a little bit easier. And this is a BFL, so it's a nice beginner-friendly fiber. And so I just worked through this entire big bag of fiber, and I have quite a bit of yarn from it. But it's not awful. Like, it's truly usable. I've just never taken the time to knit with it because I always just had other things that I wanted to make. So I never really prioritized it. But I thought it would make a really lovely woven scarf. And I feel like it has. And it just feels really special to have like my very first woven project use my very first hand spun project. So that was really nice. It's just this really lovely, like variegated gray scarf. Again, I haven't blocked this. I've just steamed it really quickly. So I think it will like soften up quite a bit more and have some more drape after blocking. But for being off the loom, I am really, really happy with it. I did a little bit of fringe. The loom also came with a Ashford fringe twister. You can put the ends of your like scarf in there and then twist them, and then like they twist back on each other, basically how you would with spinning singles and plying. So the ends of my scarf, I use that fringe twister on, and they look really nice, I feel like. So yeah, this is just a really special project. Like I said, I have this and I think like the equivalent of 2 more like 100-gram skeins of yarn of this yarn left. I would like to leave 1 skein just like as a skein, as a memento of my very first spinning project. I feel like at this point in time, that would be nice to just like have that exist as it does. But I would like to use the rest of it. So I could definitely make another few scarves out of this. I want to say at least 2 scarves more out of this if I just did the same dimensions, or maybe just like 1 wider blanket scarf. But yeah, I'm really, really happy with this. And yeah, it's just a fun little special project, very close to my heart. I'm excited to block it and see what happens to it. And then after that, I decided I wanted to try weaving some towels. And I ended up I did have to buy some cotton yarn for this. My sister and I went to Black Sheep Gathering in Albany this last weekend, and I picked up some cotton from Eugene Textile Center there. That stuff is so cheap compared to knitting yarn. It comes on a cone with like over 1,000 yards, and it's $12. So it feels like a really good deal as a knitter. I know, you know, weaving kind of eats yarn, but it feels like a really good deal. Anyway, I had very high hopes. I like warped enough length for me to make 2 towels. I did some research online. I had really high hopes that I was going to come out with really practical, usable towels immediately based on the success of my scarf. It didn't really work out. So I used this as a learning opportunity to sample some stuff. I played around with a color gamp, which is basically just the transitions in color that you see here, where you warp, you know, 1 color, 2 color, 3 color, how many ever colors you want, and then you weft in the same order. So color 1, color 2, color 3, color 4. So they all kind of overlap with each other at different points and create different little gradations. So that was a fun little color exercise, but I was not happy with the fabric that came out of it. It feels too open, and I think the term is slaggy. I can like stick a finger through it pretty easily. It's just not ideal. And I would like something a little bit denser for even like a tea towel. I feel like needs to be a little bit denser. So then while the warp was still, going, I decided I wanted to try doing something a little bit denser. So on this version, I doubled up my warp threads, but kept my weft threads single. And then on this one, I did double warp. Obviously, I kept the warp the same. And then did double weft as well. And the density of this one is way nicer. Again, I have not washed this stuff, so it might change after washing. But this one feels way nicer to me. It's still decently open, but it just it feels substantial and like I'm not going to ruin it or like break or like pull on anything. I feel like this one can get snagged really easily. So, I was feeling pretty good about this, and I had plenty of warp that I could continue winding and weaving, and make a towel or two if I wanted to using this formula. But my warp tension was not great. I think when I warped it, this was my first time warping this wide, and it just wasn't the most even tension. And it was also my very first time double threading a warp, and I just think I was a little bit overly ambitious, and there were just some tangles and snarls and like weird tension things happening, and I was getting quite frustrated. And so I just decided to cut my losses. I did cut this off the loom and then try and kind of sort out the warp a little bit, and it didn't work. And so I ended up just pulling it all off, and I'll try again in a little bit. I'll get another project or two under my belt and come back to this. But yeah, this was a really great just learning process for me, learning what I like. I do feel like this top fabric is pretty good for a towel. I also would like to try a 12 dent reed, because this was on I don't think I said, I did this on a 10 dent reed. Sorry, I'm learning all the terminology here. So if I'm not explaining things great, I apologize. I did this on a 10 dent reed, and I do like this fabric. I would like to try the 12 dent reed, to get it a little bit denser and see what that's like. But that is something that I have to buy. So I'm going to hold off on that for now, go back to some scarves, play around with that, and just have some fun with some things in my stash. I do really like the color gradations that are happening here. And I actually realized, because I'm double warping and holding weft double as well, I can actually even get a smoother gradient by holding 2 yellow and then 1 yellow, 1 beige, 2 beige, 1 beige, 1 oatmeal, 2 oatmeal. I can fade it and grade it a little bit softer as well, which I'm gonna do next time for sure. But I think these will be just some really nice, lovely kitchen towels eventually, for my house. And the dream is that I get proficient enough at this that Christmas gifts, yeah, I'll weave you some kitchen towels. I feel like that's a really good gift to get, especially if they're hand woven and it's just really special. So yeah, that's kind of the weaving journey for now. I'm really excited about it, and trying not to get too hyper focused with it, because it is really easy for me when I'm learning something new to just focus in on it. But I do want to spin, I do want to knit, I do want to do all the things. So I think going back to kind of square one with the scarf will bring me back down to earth a little bit, and just be a little bit more straightforward, and something that I can spend some time on and then move on to other things and not feel so sucked in. But I'm really, really enjoying weaving. I'm very excited about it and just happy that I went forward with the purchase. And I just feel like, looking at my stash and looking at the leftovers yarns that I have and stuff, I just feel like my brain has kind of clicked in a different way. I see so much new opportunities and potential to work with different yarns that I just already have in stash. And I'm really, really excited to see where this journey takes me. It's a huge learning curve, but I really enjoy those every now and then. So for my next scarf, I'm going to be working with these 2 yarns. I rehanged this one pretty poorly, so it's kind of sloppy right now. This is Fuzzy Peach Fibers, one of her sock bases. I don't remember which one. Fuzzy Peach Fibers is no longer in business. It's just kind of a nice beige with some red tones, and then some charcoal speckles. And this is Murray & Co. Wool Goods Yak sock, I think. I got this several years ago, but this is the color Foxy. I do remember that. It's just, oh, it's so pretty. It's red rust with blue speckles and tan speckles. It looks so pretty knit up. I was so sad when I had to rip this out. This is definitely merino and definitely yak, and it might have some silk in there as well. I can't remember. I don't think I put it in Rambouillet either. This was bought a long time ago. But see what I'm saying? Deep stash. Things that I do like, but I don't know what to make with. And like a yak, I don't know. It's like something in me just feels like it's too special for socks. So it's like I have to take the time to make an accessory. And I don't always, like I have other yarns that I want to knit accessories with. So the idea of weaving these feel really fun. I think this is what I want to do. I also have the beige yarn from this sample that I could pair with this foxy yarn. But I think this would be pretty. So I think I'm going to try this as the warp, the vertical threads, and this as the weft or the horizontal threads, and see how that comes together and make a nice little clean scarf out of this yarn. Okay, that was a lot to get through, but that is officially all that I have to share with you today. Thank you so much for being here, if you still are. As a reminder, my Fable sock knitting pattern is officially live and open to the world, so if that's something you're interested in purchasing and knitting, the link to that pattern is in the description below. I appreciate you guys so much. All the support that I've had around that sock pattern has just been incredible. And yeah, it wouldn't exist without you guys. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.